the curtains come down on the 2020-21 season, we decided to do a season review, so we've gathered together a few Saints fans to give us their reflections on the season. Most are season ticket holders and away travellers and friends to myself and Mark H.
First up, we have Andrew Bartlett, who is part of the Midland Saints group. We're going to have his son on shortly as well. So, anyway, Andy, let's see, first of all, give me your thoughts on the season as a whole, 2021.
Well, yeah, I think it was a season that promised a great deal, but ended up delivering very little. And if we'd actually got to a cup final, we'd have thought it would have been a great season, because any season where you get to a cup final and don't get relegated is a great season. But without that cup final, there is very little to console us. We can't escape the fact that this calendar year we've been the poorest team there is in the Premier League and the poorest team in Saints top flight history. You just can't escape that. And there are some mitigating factors like the injuries and some rank bad luck that we had along the way. But in the end, even when the players came back, we simply weren't good enough. And it frightens me for next season because, as we've already seen with Sheffield United, poor form at the end of one season often carries through to the next season.
Agreed. I mean, I take it you were feeling optimistic in the summer because basically, you know, we had Project Restart, and obviously the form during Project Restart before the new season gave us optimism.
Well, we were absolutely fact. We were fantastic after Project Restart. Now, I don't know whether the key factor of that was that the players had a very long break and that we came back fully refreshed and actually seemingly more committed to the restart than a lot of other teams. Who knows how the previous season might have panned out had we not had that break, because we were in desperate circumstances, especially after that home defeat against Newcastle. And I can imagine we'd have ended up in a relegation battle if we hadn't had the break. But with the break and the form that we showed and how good the players were and how organised they were, we had every reason to be optimistic this past season. And it showed. I mean, we had some ridiculous results at the start. We should never have lost to Palace. And I don't think I've ever seen more naive defending than we put in against Spurs. But after that, we started motoring and we were excellent.
Okay, so let me move on. So the next question then is basically the best game of the season for you as a Saints supporter?
Well, for me, the standout game was the away game at Chelsea where we drew 3-3, because it was played under quite difficult circumstances. You know, and Chelsea got a good team, and it looked like we were going to be overwhelmed at one time, but we never lost our enterprise. We never lost our ambition. And we got back into the game at the end. And you wonder, where did all of that hard work and optimism go? Because we showed nothing like that in the second half of the season, aside from perhaps the draw against Leicester.
There's one thing I want to ask you. I mean, did you not kind of feel that a lot of it was down to Ralph was getting a tune out of some very ordinary players, I would say, and he actually improved one or two players? And also, do you not, you know, I get that you're sort of saying that the players came back, but I always sensed that the problem that we would have would be, you know, we get 2 or 3 injuries to the first team, and that would be basically us struggling.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue, is that we've probably got a first, 12 or 14 players who are as good as any bottom half of the table team, if not better. But we've got no backup at all. And we almost willfully in the second half of the team made our squad weaker. I mean, what possessed Ralph to let our cover fullbacks go. I mean, that was just asking for trouble. Yeah. And that all culminated with a 9-0 defeat at Manchester United. But it was almost, I don't know, it was almost like Ralph having a nervous breakdown in public that game. Yeah, because, if you look at the bench that he put out, it was like a cry for help.
Yeah, no, it was. I actually found that towards the end of the season as well, obviously there was a lot of bemoaning the fact that there wasn't enough depth and enough quality within the team. I still think that there's 3 or 4 in the first team that are very ordinary players. But let me move on to the next question. What was your worst game of the Saints season?
Well, this is one of the hardest choices to make because there are so many candidates for it. I think it's very difficult to choose between West Brom away, which was possibly one of the most pitiful away performances I've ever seen, or Brighton home, where we took not turning up for a game to a whole new level. Brighton are a terrible, terrible team, and they won easily, and they won deservedly. Really, the worst game of the season has to be the semi-final. Yeah. How can you go to a semi-final and not compete at all, not get one shot on goal, not look at all bothered? When it was the players' one chance that they'll probably get to play in a Wembley final. And they simply couldn't be bothered. They were clearly not motivated.
Yeah, and we never knew when we're going to be back in that situation again. I mean, my aspiration is that, we'll win a trophy at some point so that we bring a whole new generation of Saints supporters, to the club. But while that isn't happening, you're not going to get the same sort of effect, because I always turn around and say that it's people of my age that are basically Saints followers.
Yeah.
Are they? And I'm sure you'd go along with that because it's 76.
My ambition, which probably seems very unambitious, is to make a major final every 10 years.
Right? I can live with that. You'd like to think it's within our compass, but then I don't know so much.
And yet we had this season perhaps the best chance we will have for a generation of winning the Cup. Because if you look at it, Leicester won the semi-final and the final with 2 shots on goal. Yeah, we could have done that.
I know. I mean, I actually thought both sides in the semi-final were poor, and it was poor for a semi-final. But I also think that, I mean, it was a strange season as a whole. I mean, you didn't have any time. The season was so condensed. But
yeah.
Anyway, let me move on. Your player of the season, please.
Well, for me, again, it's slightly difficult because Walker Peters, I think, is clearly the best player in the team. He is a phenomenally good player. But I would say in terms of the effort put in and his willingness to play in different roles, it's Stuart Armstrong. He is a fantastic player. He's proved me wrong about players coming from Scotland because he is adapted really well to the Premier League. And he is one of the players in the team who plays with optimism. He's always looking for the ball. He's looking to make things happen. He was given a difficult job by Ralph towards the end of the season of having to not play so wide and come into the centre. And he did that to the best of his abilities, and he put in a good shift.
Yeah.
So for me, that makes him player of the season.
Yeah, I think it's true to say as well that whenever he plays well, Saints play well. And I think there's an element of that to it. But anyway, let me move on. So who is your one for the future?
Well, I think there's only one real candidate for that, and that's Salisu. The times that I've seen him, he has looked like a real quality player. He is solid. He's got a good football brain. He knows when to go into the tackle, when not to overcommit. Yeah, and clearly he's quite flexible because he's put in decent shifts, playing at left back and playing in the centre. He's a decent size as well, which is something that we lack in the team because we've got a team of almost midgets, and we're often dominated by much stronger teams. And I think Salisu could help. The one game where I felt that he really let us down was Everton away, because nobody should be dominated by Calvert-Lewin. And he was pushed all over the place by him. But he does seem to have learned since then. And I think he's definitely the most promising player that we've got coming through. I mean, we had a long wait to see him, but I think it will be worth it.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. The thing is I take it that, from the start of next season, you'd like to see him playing as one or two centre-halves.
Yes. I think he's definitely a player of great promise.
Because I've found it hard to watch him having to play, left back for the last few games of the season.
Yeah, but he's been quite adaptable and has not been overwhelmed in that role.
No. So anyway, let me move on. You're seeing School of the Season?
Well, I'm not sure that this is a choice that many people would pick, but in fact, I think the best and most enjoyable goal was Romeo's screamer against West Brom at home, because that came completely out of the blue.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually realise he was capable of something like that, Andy, to be honest.
And he's such a popular player. He seems like such a decent bloke, and you think, good on you for that, scoring that sort of goal.
Yeah, 100%. And then, so your thoughts on maybe what we can expect or look forward to for next season?
Well, yeah, the rest of my family regard me as something as a happy clapper. I always try to be optimistic about Saints, but I can't see a lot to be optimistic about at the moment. If Ralph remains in charge, then I think we're doomed to more of the same. My major hope is that we have the same sort of storming start to the season that will then carry us through what will be a difficult second half of the season. Because my main concern is that we don't have the players to play Ralph's style and tactics. Our players don't have the strength, or they're not robust enough to play Ralph's pressing game for an entire season. Yeah. And, it's a repeating pattern that our players start off playing really well, and then they just get worn out.
By the way, I just want to say that, your family may think that you're a happy clapper, but I certainly don't, man. I mean, I think that you're always very honest and in the way that you're feeling about things. I mean, I have to say, I'm a Ralph fan, but towards the end of the season, he was driving me to distraction. Substitutions were confusing. I think the thing is, for me, he's beginning to overthink a little bit. And one of my biggest issues is you put your best 11 out in the pitch, and sometimes he doesn't do that. We've got Nathan Redmond playing as a sort of secondary striker to Danny Ings or whoever it would be. And the reason it is he presses better than anybody else in the team. And some of the, like Kyle Walker-Peters, for example, taken off in the last game.
Yeah, biggest belief.
And he was one of the best players for Saints on the pitch.
And I think what would make the biggest difference would be to actually have a proper number two backing up Ralph, giving him somebody to maybe moderate some of his worst decisions and to help him with substitutions. Because Ralph really cuts quite an isolated figure on the sidelines at times.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have no confidence in our backup coaching team.
And in terms of bringing players in, I mean, any thoughts on that for the new season? What positions?
Well, we haven't got any money, or we've got very limited money, depending on who goes out. And I would really put all our money into buying the best quality goalkeeper that we could get.
Right.
Because there's no doubt, if you've got a really good goalkeeper, it papers over an enormous amount of cracks in the rest of the team. And our goalkeepers are just not good enough. And McCarthy showed himself to be a liability at the end of the season. But I would keep McCarthy because I think he's a reasonable backup keeper. He's not a number one goalkeeper. But even if we got somebody like Areola from Fulham, there are players, there are keepers who are better than what we've got, who I think we can actually aim at, who wouldn't cost an absolute fortune, but would make a big difference. So, of course, we're committed to having a left back because we've got no left back, so we know we've got to get a left back. But
a left back goalkeeper.
Left back and goalkeeper, and I think maybe we could muddle through with the rest of what we've got if we hope that some other players that are coming through continue to come through.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Andy. I greatly appreciate your time and coming on the call and sharing your thoughts with us. Thanks very much for taking the trouble to come on.
Right, you're welcome.
Thanks very much, Andy. Bye for now. Bye, mate.
Coming up next after a very short break, Hugh Bartlett.
Fiesta 95 FM, the Two Saints Show.
Hi, Hugh.
Hello, how's it going?
Not too bad. Thanks for taking the trouble to do the interview. And let me just introduce you first of all. So this is Hugh Bartlett, and he is a member of the Midland Saints grouping. He has a season ticket in the chapel along with his dad.
That's correct.
And so let's get into it anyway, Hugh. So first up, can you give me your thoughts on the season, please?
To be fair, I think most Saints fans would have took 15th place in a cup semi-final this season. Granted, it's quite disappointing how we tailed off after Christmas, but given the nature of the season, starting late, no pre-season, it's sort of understandable, not to the extent of how many games are actually lost, especially away from home. But I don't think it's bad, and I think anyone looking for certain players, it's just blown out of proportion, really. I generally feel next season will be a successful season. I'd rate it about a 6 out of 10. I'm satisfied with what I've seen overall.
Right, okay. So, that's fair enough in terms of rating, but I'm just wondering, was there at any stage during the season where you've sort of felt we've lost the momentum and it wasn't through injuries or anything that would have been out of Ralph's hands? I mean, I've got to be honest and say to you, were you questioning towards the end of the season some of Ralph's substitutions? Because I've came round to the fact where I just sort of sit there and think, Ralph, please just go pick your best 11, put them out in the park, and don't change anything, because as we've seen the last few games, when he changes something on the park, it actually doesn't. A lot of the time it doesn't work out.
Yeah, there are different types of managers, aren't there? Ralph's very much a motivator. I'd put him in the Alan Pardew bracket. He knows how to hold a good team talk, not necessarily the best tactician, but managers who can do bits of everything are hard to come by these days. I do think with a bit of extra support from the backroom staff, Ralph would work on these substitutions. He would be slightly better tactic. I do agree with that. However, Saints weren't the only club to go on a bit in the second half of the season. Wolves and Crystal Palace spring to mind. They very much struggled as well. Not quite to the same extent as us, but I think once we had gone out the FA Cup, well, players, coming up this summer, why risk an injury for most games, essentially?
The other thing then is just moving on to the next question. Your best Saints game of the season?
I mean, there's actually quite a few good contenders at the start of the season. Second half of the season, I'm a push fight to come out with ones. But I think most people would probably agree with me. The 1-0 win over Liverpool, the manner of the performance as well, restricting them to one shot on target, which was after the 80th minute. How many clubs, I wouldn't have thought any club in the history of the Premier League have ever managed that against the Champions. A remarkable performance defensively. And defensively, we're lethal on the tackle because the perfect performance. There's not a single hole I could pick in it. Liverpool were struggling that much. Alexander-Arnold gave the ball away. I think it was over 40 times in the 60 minutes it was on. There was just no space for them. I've never seen a team so well organised in my life. Yeah, I do think injuries did play a big part. Obviously, losing the way we did against Man United. A lot of players are confident players, aren't they? And once they had the 9-0 defeat at Man United, it was very hard to rally around that as well, wasn't it?
Your worst game of the Saints season?
There's quite a few contenders. So obviously the 9-0 springs to mind, but that wasn't completely down to Saints. Mike Dean has to share a large chunk of the blame for that one. So I'm actually going to go for the Newcastle defeat. The fact we saw what Man United did to us when we went down to 9 men. We hardly threatened the goalkeeper when Newcastle went down to 9 men. I think we actually played against 9 men longer than Man United did against us. It was, I know the peer logs by the end of it, but it was absolutely feeble. In fact, Newcastle were hitting us on the break all the time. They weren't even sitting back that deep, and we just didn't threaten them at all. It was a woeful performance, and it's up there in terms of one of the worstest plays I've seen in my lifetime, and I've seen a fair few.
That sounds awful. But anyway, so who was your player of the season?
Oh, yeah, I know a lot of people would disagree with me because he wasn't fully involved across the board this season, but I'd say Danny Ings. When Ings doesn't play, we look a completely different side. We're about as threatening as a child with a butter knife when we don't have Danny Ings on our team. It's as simple as that. No one else has got goals in them like Ings has. He's lethal in front of goal, and that's part of the reason we slumped second half of the season when he picked up his injury. And it did take him a little while to find his form back as well, didn't it?
You're one to watch for the future and next season?
That's a very difficult question, Mark. I'd love to give it to an academy player, but as you know, the under-23 is the under-18 relegation. I don't think anyone's eligible from those sides, so I'm going to have to give it to a senior team. And again, I know Nathan Teller's had a breakthrough season, but he's 22 years old. Someone of that age, I'd have liked to have seen broke into the team a bit earlier for me. So I am really struggling. I'm going to have to give it to Mohamed Salisu because given the fact he had such a lengthy injury, I've been very impressed how he's come into the team. And I'd say he's going to be a regular starter from next season in such a short space of time. He's not had a single cap for his country as well. He's really impressed me. And it could well be one of the bargains of the century bringing him in.
I do agree, mate. I mean, and I take it that you would agree that you hope to see him as part of a central defensive partnership rather than playing left back.
Yeah, that's part of the reason he's lead so many goals. He keeps changing the centre halves, keeps changing any organised side like Burnley, for example. You know every single week the keeper and the back four are going to be, and once we get that consistent, hopefully we will be more of a solid side.
Just moving on to the next question then. So your Saints goal of the season?
Another very difficult question, Mark. One probably agree with me. The Danny Ings finish against Liverpool are remarkable. Don't get me wrong, the defending was a little from Trent Alexander-Arnold. That's probably one of the neatest and most composed finishes and things I've seen. I was impressed with that. But apart from, I guess, Romeo's goal against West Brom is a contest. Nice strike outside the box, but it's been quite a poor season for special goals. But
what was I going to say? I mean, the thing that sort of amazed me with Danny Ings, and you know, this is even going back into last season, but he can make goals out of absolutely nothing. You know, there's nothing on, and you know he can score from, you know, virtually any position. And like I said, it's more to do with the fact that there's absolutely nothing on. So it's basically taking a shot at goal. Yeah, so apart from that then, the next or the final question is your thoughts on maybe what we can expect or look forward to next season? Obviously, the biggest thing to look forward to, I don't know what the capacity will be, but fans actually being back in the region's got to be the best thing to look forward to. And I'm so glad we secured survival.
we can at least see another year of Premier League football. But we have to see how ambitious the club are. We're most likely going to lose Danny. I assume Ward-Prowse will get offers, depending on who comes in, who potentially leaves. But I do think it's going to be another season of survival, probably very similar, and realistically speaking, because clubs like Leeds, Villa, they're going to keep beating us financially. So I'd like to say a mid-table finish and a nice pressing style of football as well to look forward to. Quite safe, but quite secure.
I mean, are you of the same mindset in myself that Ralph's still the man to take the club forward in relation to? I mean, I feel that we still have some very ordinary players in our starting 11, but the thing is, at the start of the season, Ralph was managing to get a tune out of those players. I mean, do you still feel that Ralph's the man to take the club forward?
Well, yeah, I mean, I won't swear on the stream, but you can't polish a number 2 is a famous saying. So I'm not sure what Ralph can really do with the tools he's got at hand. So, and realistically, if he does go as well, who's going to want to come in and work on such a shoestring budget? Genuinely, if you ask most Saints fans and non-Saints fans where you'd expect our current crop of players to go, and with minimal investment, I think is about our level, really. And the fact he managed to bring us to a cup semi-final as well, I don't even think how it can be questioned.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much the same way, mate. I kind of think at the end of the day, we've got the best manager we could possibly have, but maybe we just don't have the best players that we could possibly have. But anyway, Hugh, thanks very much for taking the time.
Well.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and the coach. Any good manager has a set backroom staff that follow. Ralph's doing it all by himself, isn't he? So
yeah, he is.
I do from the Bundesliga or his home country that he's got a working relationship with would help massively as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing is I just think that's part of the fallout from when he lost Danny Röhl to Bayern Munich. But I think one of the problems is his assistant. He came in, had only just recently got his equivalent qualifications before he took the Saints post, because it was his first post as an assistant manager. But I do think that probably you're right in the sense that
I think he had a spell
Ralph could do with greater support. Anyway, Hugh, thank you for joining us.
All the best. Have a nice summer. Take care. Bye.
Bye, and thank you for your time, mate. Bye.
We're going to take another short break now, and then we'll be into our next interview today. From Thursday the 17th of June, we're bringing you Two Saints at the Euros, which will run for the duration of the competition. It will feature games involving England, Scotland, Denmark and Poland. Because some of these involve Saints players, we will have regular features like Saints Club News, other football news and Saints transfer gossip. Still broadcasting on Fiesta 95 FM in Southampton, Thursday 1 to 3 PM and via online radiobox.com. Right, everybody, up next we have Leon Burton, and Leon is one of the people responsible for the administration and the running of Saints Archive.
Obviously, this is Leon Burton, and along with Will Dorr, he is responsible for the Saints Archive, which is fantastic. Have a look at it either on its own website or on the Facebook pages. But honestly, Saints fans, if you haven't looked at it before, please have a look at it. Anyway, Leon, I'm going to have to get straight into the questions because we haven't got long. So, first of all, what did you make of Saints 2021 season?
Just one word, Mark, to be honest. Very disappointing. Well, that's two words. It was weird because the last few seasons we've started off badly and ended up really good. And we just escaped relegation. So when the end season finishes, we're on a high, so the fans go away happy, thinking it's going to happen again the next season. But the complete opposite happened last season, didn't it? We had such a fantastic start. I mean, not going top of the league and everything, but then we just went downhill. So, and we weren't close to relegation, but it was a bit of a worry at the time. But then the fans go away at the end of the season negative, don't they?
Very much so. Very much so. I mean, my own thoughts was that I felt going into the season, obviously I was very positive. You know, we had Project Restart and the results from that. So you're going to go into the season positive. But then I kind of felt that early in the season when we were doing well, he was getting a tune out of players that I'm not necessarily convinced myself that they're, you know, of Saints standard, but then I have high expectations. So maybe that's, but I did actually feel that he was getting a tune out of one or two, you know, decent players, but I wouldn't, you know, and obviously the injuries came along and stuff like that, and the condensed season had a lot to do with it as well. I mean, do you still think that Ralph's the man to take us forward, given the current constraints at the club?
I think so, Mark, really. If you do get rid of the manager, who else would come in and do the job? I mean, realistically, we're not going to finish in the top six, are we? We need to aim for mid-table. That's just the way it is these days. So I would keep him on. I know there's been a lot of negative talk about him, and he shouldn't be the manager. He should go. His tactics are wrong. But when things were good, he was God Almighty, wasn't he? So
exactly. And I think the thing is expectations get raised as well. Yeah. So, what was the best game of Saints season for you?
Yeah. I think that's quite an easy one, really. I think it's the Liverpool one. Burnley was close because we come back from 2-0 down, but I think Liverpool, where we scored the first minute, and we just hung on for dear life for 95 minutes plus, wasn't it? And they played great that day. The football was good. The players were playing in the right position. We pressed Liverpool. We didn't allow them time on the ball. So for me, I think that's got to go down as there wasn't many good games this season. But I think that's got to probably be the best one for me anyway, Mark.
Good. And just a footnote, Leon, thanks for turning up in your Saints shirt, because you're the first one to actually do it during the interviews. But anyway, moving on. So what?
It's not the new one, Mark. It's the 1960s one. So
no, I'll do me. It's good. If it was good enough for Martin Chivers and Mick Shannon, it's good enough for me.
At least I got the stripes back anyway.
But anyway, so on the flip side of that, then, what was your worst game of Saints season?
West Bromwich Albion. Not
okay.
United. Everybody was going to say Manchester United, aren't they?
Do you want to add anything to that?
If we didn't have the two sendings off that day, obviously the second sending off, we were 6-0 down and we let 3 goals in after the second sending off. West Brom away, I think, is probably the worst game for me. Spoke to a lot of other people and they agreed with me as well. We just didn't want to know that day. We didn't play. We were just awful.
So, your player of the season, please.
I thought at the start there was going to be Vestergaard and Mayo, the way they were playing at the start of the season. But then Armstrong's had a good season. But obviously I've plucked for James Ward-Prowse as well.
Good man. That's my choice. We've already had 2 very different answers, but I just think James Ward-Prowse, he epitomises everything. He may not be vocal on the pitch, but he epitomises for me everything about Saints, especially at the minute. And I hope he's with us for a long time. Anyway, So you're one for the future.
One for the what, Mark?
Your Saints player for the future.
Oh, it's a good call. I think Salusi's going to be a good player. Teller is going to be a good player. He looks hungry. He's quick. He's fast. Just needs a few games and he'll be away.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, what about your goal of the season then?
Well, I've got 5, Mark. I've got 5 goals this season. 4 to James Ward-Prowse, 4 free kicks.
Right, 4 free kicks. Yeah.
And the other one is my Danny Ings goal against Liverpool.
Okay.
Take over the goalkeeper.
That seems very popular. I mean, one of the things that I've realised sort of certainly in the last 18 months, so part of last season and obviously all of this season with Danny Ings, is that he has that ability when there's absolutely nothing on for him, especially when he's in and around the 18-yard box, and he can make a goal out of absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Mark.
You know, but and let's hope he signs that contract, Leon?
I think he will now.
So anyway, have you any thoughts or maybe anything that we can expect or look forward to going into next season?
Yeah, it's getting off to a good start again, isn't it, Mark? I mean, if we didn't get off to a good start last season, we would have been relegated for sure, wouldn't we? So it's imperative we get off to a good start, and we get to the 40 points as quickly as possible. For me, that's all I want to see. Have a good cup run like we did this year. A bit disappointing we lost to Leicester in that semi-final, I know, but just to have a good start. Need to have a good start. It's so crucial.
I take it that the expectation level then isn't very high, particularly going into next season, which, you know, I have that kind of feeling. I mean, is there anywhere within the team that you'd like to see strengthened at all?
Maybe another forward. I think probably, obviously they're looking at full-backs, aren't they? Left-backs got to be the one to go for. I think we might see Brandon Williams from Manchester United come in there.
I hope you're right. Yeah.
Another central defender maybe.
Agreed.
But I think probably in every department we need sort of strengthening, don't we?
Well, on that optimistic note, Leon, all it leaves for me to do is to turn around and say thank you very much for taking the trouble to join us today. But
And Leon, just a quick one from myself, Mark C.
Hi,
Thank
Mark.
you so much for allowing us to put the Two Saints out on Saints Archive as well. We really appreciate that. It's fantastic you've joined us today. Really appreciate it, and best wishes to everyone on Saints Archive. And
Cheers, Mark. You take care, and I'll see you soon. Yeah.
all the best, Leon.
yes, mate, yeah.
We'll be back shortly with our next interview.
Fiesta 95 FM, the Two Saints Show.
Right, up now we've got Will Dorr, who's also from Saints Archive, but Will is also a member of the Saints voice panel at Southampton Football Club.
Hello.
Good evening, Will.
Hi,
How
Will.
you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to see you boys after so blooming long.
How you doing? Great to see you.
It's lovely to see you, mate. Lovely.
Right, everybody, welcome to another of our Two Saints Show interviews tonight. And we're lucky enough to be joined by Will Dorr from Saints Archive. Welcome, Will. Just introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, as you said, my name's Will. I'm the founder and operator of Saints Archive and saintsarchive.com. It's essentially, if you don't know about it, it's essentially a forum to celebrate the club's history. We don't talk current season because we don't want to fall out with each other. So we stick to pretty much everything last season and beyond. We've got about 40, 50 ex-players from the Saints in the group as well, like Glenn Cockrell, James Beattie, and a few follow us on Twitter as well, like Mick Shannon. So yeah, it's just a really nice forum for Saints history and share videos and photos.
Absolutely. And I know myself and Mark have accessed Saints Archives quite a bit for certain stuff to do with the show. And also, you guys have been very courteous enough to allow us to actually put the Two Saints podcast show out on Saints Archive, which we're very grateful for.
Yeah, no worries at all. Enjoy listening. And to be fair, I know we have the rule of no sort of current season stuff. However, having met you numerous times through various functions and events, and obviously through supporting the Saints, I've become friends with you. And it kind of, do you know what? He's a mate. I'll leave it in there.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Right.
So to kick things off, Will, we'd like to get your thoughts on the Saints' season this year, how the season went, basically.
Well, I'm going to do that cliche that they do in like Match of the Day or any kind of punditry, and it goes, well, it was a game of two halves. Well, in this half, it's a season of two halves. First half, superb, utterly superb, and then the Liverpool game happened, and then it all went downhill after that, rather badly. I think the games possibly in the second half of the season demonstrated, as soon as we started getting injuries or players falling out of form, how the squad isn't deep enough and hasn't got enough depth. And when you look at your bench from some of the games near us for the second half of the season, and we had most of the academy sat on it, really highlighted we don't have a big enough team. Now, I know at the start of the season, Ralph had said, no, squad's big enough, I don't like a big squad. But it's all well and good not having a big squad, but with the squad, you've got having the talent to keep it going. So, yeah, I think we struggled second half, quite obvious. Not as bad as people make out. I mean, was it 43 points? It's not a drama as such. But we did rely heavily on that first half of the season to stay up, to be fair. But then saying that, we couldn't go to games anyway. So to be fair, it wasn't quite a normal season anyway. So I'm ready to write last season off as just as a blip.
Yeah, I mean, I know me and Mark have spoken about the fact that it was a condensed season, a lot of fixtures in a short space of time, and obviously not being able to use the recovery equipment at Staplewood, not being able to recover like normal, obviously did have a massive impact. And like you said, started the season very strongly, second half of the season not quite so good. So moving on to the next question, what do you feel was the best game for you this season for Saints?
I don't know what everyone else has said that you've asked on this one, so I might be going completely off the ball with this one, but this one was my favourite. It had everything. It had us sauntering off into the lead, and then the other side making a quick sort of comeback at us, and that was the Aston Villa game where we won 4-3. So we were like 4-0 up. I was like, this is brilliant. We're absolutely spanking them. And then the goals start to creep in for Villa, and I'm like, oh, yeah, we're going to mess this up now, aren't we? And luckily, they've just run out of minutes. I think Jack Grealish got the last goal and made it a bit dicey near the end. That was my favourite because could have defended better, to be fair. Even if you're a neutral, you would have loved that game because there's just loads of goals. And I think just before that, Villa had absolutely spanked Liverpool, something like 7-2 or something ridiculous like that. So it's been a weird season for weird results.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And on the back of that, obviously, what would you say was the worst game of the season? I know everyone's got different views on this. Some of them are quite obvious and some of them aren't.
Well, I think the obvious one you might be mentioning might be the 9-0 to Manchester United. I think that was a freak result rather than... It wasn't like a 9-0 like one against Leicester. I hated to mention that one because all the football pundits like to say us every single game, 9-0 Leicester. But yeah, I just found with the game against Leicester when we lost 9-0, we were rubbish. Every single player on that pitch didn't deserve to wear the colours that night. Whereas against United, we had the early send-off, and United, just everything they did, pulled off. We weren't terrible. Everything worked for them. So that, for me, wasn't really my worst game.
Well, I think the officials worked for them a little bit as well, didn't they, to be fair? Mike Dean's got a little bit of accountability there, I think.
I'll tell you what, if he could have been running around in the red kit with them, he would have been. But he was terrible. But so the result for me was the 3-0 West Brom loss. I mean, they were almost down, and we just needed the points, and we thought, oh, West Brom, that'd be an easy result to get, because we're struggling with form at the moment. And we rolled over and died.
Absolutely.
We were absolutely dreadful in that game. And, I'm glad I didn't go to games like that because I would have come out with a real sour taste in my mouth. Well,
I know Mark does a lot of travelling, and I know Mark was probably quite relieved that he wasn't there for that. And he does like almost every home and away game, so I think Mark was probably quite relieved he missed it.
I'm looking forward to the ecstasy, and I'm looking forward to the misery of doing away games again. I
think we all are. I think we missed the banter, we missed the camaraderie, and we missed the friendship, don't we? Most of all, definitely.
Yeah, completely. I mean, we did the centre circle flag just up till last season. Well, not the season just gone, but the last season before that, the game against Newcastle, which we lost 1-0.
Yep.
And I mean, if you were at the game, that I have never known an atmosphere quite like it. We kind of knew that this weird virus was coming along and countries were locking down and it was waving across Europe. And we thought, UK next, could be the last game for a little while. And I think the fans got it into their heads. Last time we were all going to be properly together, all 30,000 of us singing and chanting. And when we were singing, Pompey got battered for like 15, 20 minutes non-stop. I played that video back And it's in the archive as well, simply because it just your hairs stand up on the back of your neck.
Yeah,
I want to get back to that. So badly.
Definitely. So, talking of your hairs on the back of your neck standing up, your player of the season, which Saints player of the season made your hair stand up on the back of your neck?
Stuart Armstrong, without doubt. He wasn't, I would say, the best, but he was the most consistent top-end player throughout the season. So for consistency, I'd give it to him. He didn't really have bad games. He just put in a shift, played the game that he was instructed to, and I wouldn't say he put a foot wrong, but he did a lot less to worry me than the other guys.
No, in fairness, I think Stuart Armstrong's a great call, and to be fair, for me it's James Ward-Prowse, but that's probably a lot more to do with the fact that, I mean, 2 back-to-back Premier League campaigns and played every single minute of both seasons. That's about effort and fitness and consistency. So for me, James Ward-Prowse, purely and simply every minute of every game, and he's been Mr. Versatile. However, I do agree with your view that Stuart Armstrong's had a great season. He's been very strong. He's played in different positions, and at the moment, he's formed a fantastic partnership with James Ward-Prowse in the middle of the park there.
And he's
a good shout, I think.
He's a favourite of ours, well, anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, if you talk to a few Celtic fans, they always comment on his hair, and I must admit, having met him in person a few seasons back, he has got good hair, that lad. So well done.
Unfortunately for Stu, the only downside is he's got the surname Armstrong, and he's apparently nicknamed Stretch now, which is a little bit comical. I'm not sure he'll like that very much, but I'm sure if he does well for Scotland in the Euros, I'm sure he won't be complaining about being called Stretch.
Nah, not at all. And the Euros for his type of players is the platform he needs. That European stage. Fair play to him, he's earned it. And
absolutely,
yeah.
And let's hope it could be the making of another Saint in Shay Adams, couldn't it? It could be just the thing Shay Adams needs.
Yeah, it could be for the confidence booster. He started off, end of the season that got restarted because of the pandemic mid last year. He started to find his scoring boots.
Yeah.
Brought it into the new season scoring, then had his Shay Adams, I'm not going to score for a few months. And then he started to find it a bit through games like Sheffield United and that. Yeah. And I think it's a bit of a step for him. He was a championship player with Birmingham before he came to us, and not to put down the championship in any shape or form. It's a good league full of good teams.
Yeah.
But I think the Premier League is a different ball game altogether. It's quite elite.
Definitely.
And
so moving on from Shay, great partnership with Danny Ings, and let's hope they both start as many games as possible next season. 22 goals between the two of them and 9 assists. So we'll leave it at that. You're one for the future, Will. What's the one player who stands out for you in the Saints team? Who's the one player that stands out in the Saints team you think is one for the future? I know me and Mark have our own view on it. I think we're probably on the same page, actually. But who would you say is your one for the future?
Well, he's made a name for himself this season. So it's the young lad Teller. I think he's proven his ability this season. It was great seeing him score his senior goal. Man, did he look proper happy with himself for that one.
Yeah, if you want to see a player score, look at Nathan Teller. Yeah.
Yeah. I think once he's had a bit of a rest, worked on things, I wouldn't say worked on fitness because he is a fit lad, but worked on developing his game and having a good pre-season. I can see the best coming out of him and his impact year being next season. If he's played well, played in the right position, he could even start to force some of the senior members out of that position as well, because that's how good he is at the moment.
Where would you?
I think he's got a touch of Nathan Dyer about him. Sorry, Mark, carry on.
I was going to say, where would you play him? Well, where is his best position for you?
I don't know the fact that, once or twice he had been played. Out on the right, I think, isn't it? And I would have him pressing up higher than in the position he is. I know he's out on the wing, but he runs into that box at such speed. If he isn't going to have a shot or lay it off to someone, he's going to be taken out by someone and gets a penalty. So he's a natural sort of havoc creating player. He bursts very quickly into opposition areas. Even if you want to keep him for the last 20 minutes of a game and tenderise his weary back four of the opponent, so then he could do that as well. So
he's
an awesome player, but I think you could have played him in goal and still put 110% in.
Yeah, I can't argue that. For me, he's got a bit of the Nathan Dyer about him, but I think the difference between him and Nathan Dyer is I actually think Teller's more consistent. He poses more of a threat whenever he plays, whereas Nathan Dyer, it was kind of in fits and spurts. He was a threat, but not all the time. and even when he went to Swansea, he didn't do a massive amount there. So, yeah, for me, Nathan Tella, certainly exciting talent, certainly somebody to get you up on the edge of your seat, which we definitely want some of that. So, moving on, I'm going to put you on the spot now, Will. Goal of the season, and I think there's probably been a few contenders.
I've gone with Shea Adams' goal away to Sheffield United.
Yes.
It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long for when I watch that for the commentators to actually. I mean, quite often Saints score. And it's, right, goal, well done. But this even made them stand up and wow, it was a brilliant goal. That it's a way to control it, smash. I think when he overthinks something, he's just terrible in front of goal. But if it's all impulse, it's going in.
Yeah.
So, and that was definitely an impulse shot.
I think I said to Mark, I think I did actually said it on the radio show. I think it was pretty much, there was only one place that ball was going when it left his foot, and it was dig that one out, because nobody was saving that. That was just unsavable. It was an absolute barnstormer. And the technique, I mean, if you're trying to teach young players how to strike a football, the technique was superb. So well done, James Beattie, for coaching him that when you were at Birmingham with him, because I can't help thinking Beats had something to do with that. It's quite reminiscent of, I seem to remember Beattie scored a couple of screamers like that. So, yeah, it can't be a coincidence that the guy that coached him probably had a bit of an impact there, I think. Right, and moving on to the last question for you. What do you feel we can expect from Saints next season? Putting you on the spot now.
I don't like to be negative. It's not something I like doing, but we've got to look at the elephant in the room, and then I will point out what positives I think we've got going forward. The obvious at the moment is we've got this end of season and next end of season of a lot of contracts expiring. So we've lost Ryan. It's quite obvious now that the stories of him going to Leicester are going to become more and more true. Wish him all the best. Fantastic servant for the club, and I only wish good things for him. Sam McQueen, I think this is the end of his career. Not only for Saints because his contract's up in June, but with Ralph talking about his injury, the lad's gone. I think he'll have to go into coaching or something, and that's really sad. Harry Lewis, the youngster, 23, not really a first team player, probably quite replaceable. Or if they want to give him a contract extension, keep this tender mature a bit later. So not too much of a worry though, I don't think. But then when I looked into 2022, trying to go a little bit further ahead than just next season, and the list is quite worrying. Danny Ings being the main one. The boy's a Southampton boy. He's a goal scorer. He's our talisman. But I think his head's turned. And then this rumour that he wants Champions League football. Well, I like to watch Champions League football from a seat as well, and that's what he'll be doing if he goes to Man City, because he ain't getting on that pitch.
Yep.
Yannick Vestergaard improved. He has improved in the last year or so since from when we bought him. You need to get his pen on paper and give him the chance, and keep him. Alex Butterfingers McCarthy. Let him go. To be fair, I'll let the contract expire. Just see you later, mate. Cornish Maldini.
I've nicknamed him Alex. I can't catch anything, McCarthy, because he quite clearly can't.
Yeah, I'm amazed he caught COVID. To be fair.
Very good.
Yeah, Jack Stevens, the Cornish Maldini. Give the boy a contract. I'd give him, even if he's just backup player. I'll a few nods ahead there. No. Good. Obafemi.
A couple of people that stood out for me, Mark, that we kind of didn't really agree with. Theo Walcott's 2-year deal, and Jack Stevens gets a 4-year deal from the club. And at the time, he wasn't featuring as a regular. Now, I get some people say Jack Stevens gives 100% for the Saints shirt. Yeah, okay, I'm not debating that. I think the biggest problem we've got defensively is we've got too many centre-halves that have a ricket in them. And unfortunately, Vestergaard and Jack Stevens are definitely in that bracket, sadly.
Well, yeah, and Salusa and Bednarak and those sort of guys are the standard that we want. And we say that word again, consistency. Yeah, it is what it is. But, I mean, worrying thoughts on that, plus the club posting huge losses, not just because of COVID, but because of, to be fair, poor money management.
Yep.
Getting into a sponsorship deal with JD Sports, a company that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Giving Shane Long a 2-year contract last season wasn't the smartest move now.
So I don't want to push things too far, Will, because obviously we do have time is short, unfortunately. So can I just ask you, top half or bottom half for Saints next season, and then that will just finish things off quite nicely.
Bottom half. I hate to say it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Will, thanks ever so much for joining us tonight on the Two Saints podcast and radio show interviews, end of season review. Really appreciate it. We'll keep an eye out on Saints Archive and we'll all catch up soon. Thanks ever so much.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
Will. Cheers.
All the best.
Catch you
Thank
later.
you.
All right.
Two Saints at the Euros. Right, so up next, everybody, Tara Dow from Saints Archive. She's one of the admins on Saints Archive and also a member of the Saints voice panel at Southampton Football Club.
So we're lucky enough to be joined this evening, everybody, by Tara Dow. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite. I'm really looking forward to this.
Question one I'm going to fire at you is, what are your thoughts on the season we've just had?
Wow. I think it was, yeah, where'd you start? Well, actually, at the beginning, it didn't look like it was going to be too good. I think, we lost to Palace, and then we had that big Spurs loss, which I think was a bit like a bit of a wake-up call, really, because I think we had all these good sort of expectations. Then we lost to Brentford in the Caribou, and but then somehow it kind of turned around, really, and we had a really good spell. And I think we got to the Liverpool game, which I think was really highly charged, really emotional. And obviously we got the win, and then it kind of just went downhill really from there quite spectacularly, really. I think with injuries.
Kind of really kicked in, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think there was just injuries. I think some of the VAR stuff was I think there were some really biased decisions. Yeah, I think the wheels just come off the bus a little bit. And then obviously I think we've just sort of really scraped through in the end, got those last couple of wins. And I think, just to get those points. And then I think really we kind of took our foot off the pedal towards the end. I think we knew we were safe, and it kind of pitted away really. But yeah, bit of a weird one. I think if we hadn't got those points on the table at the beginning of the season, I think we could have been in a lot of trouble for the second half. I think looking at points, we probably were relegation if you just took the second half of the season. So in a way, I think it's a wake-up call, really, but also it shows the lack of depth, I think, in the squad, because, I think we did have a lot of injuries, and, it was... I think that kind of really impacted on it as well. But also the VAR, what was that with Shay Adams, an armband, and, you don't play football with your arm, do you? You play it with your feet. I mean,
I think
really dodgy decisions there, wasn't there? I think some of those VAR decisions really impacted on the season, because I think a player like Shay needed confidence, and there he was starting to score goals, and just one by one, they were just being taken away from him, really. And, I can imagine his confidence was a bit, shot after that. And
what would you say, based on all that, was your best game for Saints this season?
I think the Liverpool game. I think firstly the Liverpool game. I think it was really emotionally charged, and even though we weren't in the stadium, I think you could feel that. And even when Danny scored, I think even he was really celebrating, which you don't often see players really celebrate when they've left a team. And, just Ralph's reaction at the end, you could see how much it meant. But I also think the Fulham game that we played recently, I think just to come back the way we did, it was not looking very good. And then we did pull it back. I think that was quite a good game as well, actually, especially for a neutral. But it's not the same for me. Certainly it's not the same watching it on the TV. I get a bit distracted, I think, sat in my armchair. Actually, some of those games, the commentators were driving me absolutely bonkers, because they were just so biased. It was like the Tottenham game. It's like they're 1 minute to go, and Tottenham have got 1 minute left to score a goal. Well, hang on a minute, we're at home here. Surely you should be saying Saints have got 1 minute to score a goal. Do you know what I mean? It was just very biased commentating. I must admit,
it'd be quite nice if we heard the commentators every now and then saying, "Don't write Saints off, because if James Ward-Prowse gets a free kick, they're in trouble." Yeah,
Yeah, I think they were a little bit towards James. I think they were kind of, they kept sort of saying that he was nearly. I think he equaled, didn't he? He's equaled Beckham's record, but he's not. It was a bit of a shame, wasn't it? Did he?
I think he's a little bit behind Beckham, but I think he might have equalled Matty's record.
Was it Matty's? I knew there was one that he equalled. He was a bit unlucky though, wasn't he, in one of the last games because he hit yeah. But
Yeah, I think if anything, he overhits them sometimes. So moving on from there, what would you say was your worst game for Saints this season? And there've been a few.
Well, yeah, I think it's got to go down as the Man United game, to be honest. I think, I mean, obviously the scoreline, but it was kind of a, I don't know what it is with us when we play on Tuesday nights but it's just, I think evening games, we seem to just... it was the weather. It was like Leicester all over again. But I think it was a slightly different in that, I think young Alex Jankovic was really unlucky, really being sort of being sent off when he did. He's a young lad. He's gone in. He was trying to make an impression, and it's just gone a little bit wrong. And
he certainly made an impression on McTominay.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? But at the end of the day, it's a young lad's career. Do you know what I mean? And I think it put everybody on the back front. And I think it was exactly the same at Leicester the season before because Ryan Bertram got sent off in the first couple of minutes. And and actually he's an experienced player, so it's it just started wrong and it just went downhill really from there.
It's funny you mentioned that as well because me and Mark were talking about the Leicester game this season when we had that early sending off and we were sat there going, I wonder how many Saints fans the second that happened on 10 minutes were going, here we go again. Thankfully we didn't, but I think that for me was I get where you're coming from that one definitely. So,
and I think we also, that particular game as well, again, it was another one, I think that Shea scored again, a perfectly good goal, and another one that got ruled out again, so it's, for me, that Man United game was just, let's just scrub that one.
You'll be pleased to know, I heard today that they're planning on bringing in AI for VAR.
All right,
in all fairness, I think
I still don't think it's enough.
I think I'd rather have a bit of artificial intelligence rather than a referee with no intelligence. So maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. We'll see. But,
I don't know. I mean, how hard is it to look at a TV screen? And I mean, if we can all see it, I mean, I don't know.
I don't think it's the looking at the TV screen that's the problem. They quite clearly have never heard of a ruler. And people quite clearly can't draw a straight line. I think that's the issue. Anyway, moving on. Who would you say was your Saints player of the season?
I think James Ward-Prowse for the fact I think he's been a good captain this season. I think he's played every minute. I think his free kicks, he's getting a really good reputation now for what he can do there. I think for me, though, a very close second is Stu Armstrong. I think he's... I kind of thought when he came in, he was going to do well. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a Stephen Davis type kind of player.
He was actually a replacement.
He's doing exactly. Absolutely, he's doing that. And, I think actually assist-wise, I think he's probably had quite a few this season. I think for me. And I've also thought, actually, that Kyle Walker-Peters, I think he's had a good season. I still think he's quite light, but I think that will always come. I mean, he's another young player. But I think he's had a good season as well. So I think for me, those would be my top three.
Your goal of the season?
Okay, right. My one is Romeo at West Brom. When he done that whole funny Spider-Man-y sort of kick and up in the air, it's got to be that. And again, it was a Stu Armstrong Passover. So, but my second, if I can have two, was Jay Adams half volley, Sheffield United.
One a half volley.
And it was great. It was just great for Romeo to score, wasn't it? I mean, and he was, it was just...
Moving on to the final question for you. Okay. What do you think we can expect in the coming season?
That is an interesting one. I think it's going to be quite tricky, really. I think this season I went into it with an expectation of around 8th. I thought we were going to really press on. And, I still think with the squad that we had, we could have done that. I mean, we were leading the table at one point, so there was no reason why we shouldn't. I think, obviously Bertram's gone today. He's gone to Leicester. So I don't know. I think it's going to depend on what they can bring in. But then... again, funds going to be limited because obviously what they always say is that the players they sell, that gives you the pot for buying. However, Ryan's gone on a free. And we've still got a lot of ones that are out there on loan that actually I would imagine their value is going down, not up.
I'm personally not convinced that we don't have money, and I spoke to Mark about this. Bring Theo Walcott in on a 2-year deal. That tells me the club have got more money than we're aware of, because you wouldn't be doing that if you didn't have a lot of money. That's not the sort of deal you'd probably be doing.
I think, though, personally, I think with Theo, I think he hasn't been bad on the pitch, and obviously, again, he got that injury. But I think what he gives is he's a Saints Academy player, so he'll play for that badge, and I think he'll give his all for that badge. And that's one of the things I love. I love our academy players coming through, or local lads that support the team. I just think that you always get that 1 point extra, don't you? But also, I think he's really good at mentoring, and I think if you look at one of the games recently, you could see him with Teller, and I think he's probably been brought in as well, not just for on the field, but I think he's been brought in as that one of those experienced players around some of these youngsters, because he can really resonate with them. He's come through that academy. So I think that's probably where a lot of that has come from. I mean, personally, I'd like to see Oxy come back as well, but,
He's such a romantic, is Tara Ritchie, Mark. Old romantic
Tara, one's enough. I don't need
she's an old romantic, Mark. We'll give her that one. She's an old romantic, so there's nothing wrong with that, Tara.
Surely we don't run the club on sentimentality.
Well, no, I think, but, he had a good spell at Saints, didn't he? And I think, again, it's having those players, I think, that the club means something to them, and I think that's what we get with Theo.
I don't want to sound unfair or harsh to Theo in any way whatsoever, because he does play for Saints. Look, we always support players in the Saints shirt because we're Saints fans, but the thing is with Theo, the fact that he's ended up back at Southampton, great respect to him, great respect to the club, just demonstrates to me that he has had quite an unfulfilled career. He's not really ever lived up to the potential he showed when he was younger. And that for me is it's a sad indictment of his career. No offence to him, he's a lovely lad, but sad indictment of his career that he's ended up back at Southampton. Okay, he's gone full circle. He's ended up where he started off. He may go into a coaching role, great, but for me, it's been an unfulfilled career for him, and I think it's just sad that he's ended up coming back at Southampton. Not that, I get it. People will be happy he's back. People will be happy if he goes into a coaching role. But for me, unfortunately, it just demonstrates that his career, sadly, has been unfulfilled.
What would you feel, though, if we were to brought Bell back in? He was available. Obviously, I know obviously the wages and everything would probably be really, really big. But it's kind of
a different stratosphere to what we can afford.
Yeah,
I don't think.
I do think we need to. The other thing is, going back to next season, it's one who we need someone to replace Ryan. That's a given. I like Kane Ramsey, but obviously he plays on the left, so he's probably going to be a good deputy, I think, for Kyle Walker-Peters. But who do we bring in? That's the thing. We still don't even know if Danny Ings is going to. We haven't heard yet that he's staying. What
worried me with Danny was, I think you get players sometimes make statements and you kind of go, that's a leaving statement if ever I've heard one. And sadly, I listened to what Danny Ings said recently in an interview, and what he said for me was a goodbye. It was almost a goodbye comment when they said to him, well, what's the situation, Danny? What's happening? And he said, well, I've got a contract with Southampton at the moment. That runs through to summer 2022. I haven't worried about transfer rumours. I'm not worrying about that. Season's not finished yet. I've got a contract with Southampton. That was the end of it. And that for me, although he basically said, I've got a contract with Southampton, that was as close to a goodbye comment as you can get, really, from my point of view. I hope he stays, but I just think the writing's on the wall.
I hope he stays, but I wonder if Theo has been signed to be that experienced player with those youngsters, if that makes sense. Because I think Teller has got so much skill, and I think he's going to be a good player for us, and I think him and Shea seem to be playing quite well together. We've also got Shane Long to come back. He's still got another. He's obviously Bournemouth. He's come back from Bournemouth, but he's still got another year, I think, on his.
I think the problem is, you look at Danny Ings and Shea Adams, and they're the class of the team. those two together, you have to start them in as many games as possible.
Yeah.
The problem is the gap between Danny Ings and Shay Adams to the second string strikers, it's an absolute glacier. It's an absolute chasm. The gap between them is huge. And there isn't anybody that fills that gap at the moment. And I think we need somebody to fill that gap. And I'm not sure we've got anyone in that current squad that does that.
So we're already needing a left back. When we're now needing somebody there in case Danny goes. It's kind of, I mean, what about the central defence? I think we're okay at the moment in central defence. I think Bedenek's really settled in well. I think Vestergaard has. I think he had a first season where I think everybody kind of really sort of jumped on him a little bit, but actually I think he's probably been again one of the good players this season. I think he's had his injury, hasn't he? But I think Bedenek's been unlucky, got sent off, and now I mean that was the other thing. How many times have we gone down to 10 men and it's been rescinded? I mean that was the other thing this season, wasn't it? It was I think across the back it's difficult. Where do we strengthen with? Probably whatever the money is. That's the thing.
I think you need centre-halves with pace. And the only centre-half really with pace is Salisu. Bednarek's awareness is great. I mean, for me, Bednarek's a bit more like Fonte in the fact he's got really good reading of the game and his positioning is really good. Yeah. Whereas I think Salisu is more about pace and strength. Yeah. So for me, they're definitely starting centre-halves. But I think
as well, Ralph does seem to play Jack. He's played Jack, hasn't he, on the side as well? So whether he's thinking of maybe with Bertram going, that maybe, and I don't know whether I don't know if that's I don't know. I think we definitely need a right back. I think actually Ryan's going to leave quite a, I think he's going to leave quite a big gap. I mean, I like watching him play. I think he always looks. And this sounds terrible. He always looked quite a lazy player, but actually, I think he's just really effective. But he's one of those that he doesn't look like he's trying very hard. But I think that because he's just the player he is, really. If that kind of makes sense. But I think he'll be missed.
Tara, you mean he's in control?
Yeah.
He looks like he's comfortable. Even though he looks like he's not doing a lot, but he's in what you mean is
a bit like a Stephen Davis. Stephen Davis was the same. He always looked like he was in control, and he never looked like he was. He never made it complicated. He always made it simple. And I think Ryan Bertram's very, very similar. My favourite game with Ryan Bertram was Arsenal when we beat them to go into the season of the League Cup final when we beat Arsenal up there, and there was Ryan Bertram and Sam McQueen playing off each other down that left hand side, and it was just such a brilliant game. It was just so lovely to watch the two of them interacting, and it's just a real shame because it sounds like Sam McQueen's now. It sounds like he's not, gonna be coming through now. It's, but no, I always remember that game. That for me was Ryan and Sam McQueen together. I thought that was.
Well, I think I'd just like to say, Tara, it's been absolutely fantastic catching up with you. I think you've covered everything very nicely. So from me, it's a massive thank you. Thanks for taking part. Really appreciate it. It's goodbye from me.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Basically, cheers, Tara, for doing the interview.
So, one last interview coming up, and we're just going to take a short break before it.
It's the Two Marks, C&H, on the Two Saint Show, Fiesta 95 FM.
Right, everybody, up next we've got Darren and Jamie Coulter, Northern Irish Saints, who both come from Antrim and very good friends of Mark's.
Hello.
Evening, both of you.
You all right?
Yes.
Good to see you both. Right?
Yes, and you are.
This is a special one that I lined up. It's two Saints fans basically from over home, well, my homeland anyway. And it's Darren Coulter and his son Jamie. And I've got to say, it's lovely to see you on the call. And we'll get straight into it. So who wants to go first?
Whatever. Oh, well, sure, it's a joint thing anyway. We're more or less agree.
Okay, all right. So basically, the first question then is, I just want to get both your reflections on the past season, 2021.
well, obviously just started off well, and then just kind of went tits up halfway through because just teams just started to figure us out, ran out of steam, like whatever you may say. But yeah, just not good enough, to be honest. And it's just going to happen again, I think, next year. Not enough investment in the team. Too many passengers in the team as well, to be honest. So yeah, that's my end take anyway.
Right, same question to you, Darren.
Our couple of leagues playing Burnham, and then I don't know what happened after Liverpool. Was it 3 wins out of 20 or something?
19 or something, yeah.
Just a disaster. Seeing players, I don't know.
I just think teams figure this out and just
can't go bad overnight.
I mean, the thing is, have you any ideas to sort of what the solution would be? Or the thing is like my own feelings about it is, I mean, I'm still backing Ralph. I'm sure you guys aren't, but I'm still backing him. The reason for it is I still don't feel that if we brought in somebody else, I just don't think that they're going to do a better job. I just think that he's our best option at the moment, given the plight of the football club. I mean, the thing is I actually think that there's people within the team that are fairly ordinary players. And the fact that he was getting a tune out of them early season, and then obviously combination of injuries, lack of quality and squad depth also was the undoing, given the condensed nature of the season. I mean, any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I just think that I think Ralph's a good coach and all, but I just think, thinking of some of the first halves that we put in, whenever imagine getting into a manager like Sean Dyche or something with a performance like that, you'd be getting your head kicked in. Whereas Ralph, he's too nice. You know what I mean? He doesn't. I don't know, he's just soft, I think. I think he's a good coach. I do think he's a good coach, but man management wise, look at the team Burnley have, even walking in Sam Allardyce or someone, you'd be shitting yourself, you know what I mean?
Over here.
Yeah.
Darren, any thoughts to add to that?
Subs as well, far too late.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I discovered, and it was kind of late on in the season, is whatever you do, irrespective of injuries, please play your best team. And the thing is for about 3/4 of the season, I was turning around and saying to them, use your subs, they're on the bench. But then when he used the subs in the last quarter of the season, it actually made the team worse. It didn't improve the team. Those are just my thoughts, and that was in the last 6 games. So you're looking at away at Spurs, and then every subsequent game since then. Really, the one that really baffled me, funnily enough, on Sunday was he took off probably our most creative player going forward on Sunday, and that was Kyle Walker-Peters. And you're sort of just sat there thinking, hang on, what's happening here? He's given us some momentum going forward, and you're taking him off,
I can't say that. They had Spurs game, which won that. We could have won that match. We could have beat Leeds away. I'm getting hammered.
It's just if you don't.
I know. We're going to come on to that in a minute. Getting hammered, but anyway, apart from that, so what was your best Saints game of the season?
What was yours? The Newcastle 2-0, definitely.
Because I didn't went top of the table.
Yeah, I didn't even think we played that well either. We just took our chances. You know what I mean? And normally, I'm never used to seeing us just take our chances and not play our best and still win a match. You know what I mean?
But anyway, apart from that, same question to you, Darren. Best match this season?
Mine was Burnley. 3-2 at home.
Right.
So 2-0 down, and I thought that was it. Flip me or and then so it proves it can be done. The Burnley aren't.
No, Burnley don't really concede.
Burnley aren't hard not to crack, aren't they? Especially they're 2-0 up, and then we just
that's a cracker, Darren, because nobody's picked that one yet, right?
It's a fair point, actually.
We're
a very good point.
Bad run of form at the time, because funnily enough, I haven't done mine yet. But my favourite actually was the home game against Chelsea when we drew 1-1, because I kind of felt that it was, at the time, it was sort of stopping the rot. But I think you're spot on about the Burnley game, like. But anyway, moving on. So on the flip side, then, of that, I can't wait to hear what Jimmy's going to say on this. What was the worst game of the season, Jimmy?
What about 20? Yeah, I know. I'd probably say the Newcastle 3-2 that day. I think that was worse than the 9-0.
Yeah, so just because they had 9 men. I mean,
9 men. And even at that, it's Newcastle. Like, they weren't in great form either. You know, you should be doing better against them, but it was just...
20 minutes, 9 men, like...
It was kind of like the Three Little Pigs, wasn't it? Saints huffed and puffed it, couldn't blow the door in. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't remember one real clear opportunity in those 20 minutes in the 18.
That's right. I think Darlow made one good save, but that was it. Yeah. But yeah, that was definitely the worst for me.
Moving on. So, what was your best? What was your favourite goal of the season?
I said earlier on, I thought was mine's against Liverpool.
Yeah,
but that's probably going to be a lot of people's, isn't it?
The Shea Adams against Sheffield United as well.
Something out of nothing, you know, because he has a habit, mate. Where even in the 18-yard box, there's been a couple of goals this season, and even during Project Restart, where there's absolutely nothing on in the 18-yard box. Nobody's available. And he's turning water into wine, basically.
No. Especially after lockdown, he did. You're right.
Yeah. The great thing about that Liverpool goal was he doesn't even look. It's just one touch back of the net. He doesn't even look. It's absolutely brilliant. It's the original no look finish. Absolutely brilliant. Knew where the goal was. Knew what he was doing. Boom, back of the net. Dig that one out. There was only one place that was going, really. And the one for me was one of the ones recently where the ball's coming into him in the box. It's bounced up. He's taking one turn and it's in the back of the net. Brilliant finish. Out of absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Brilliant.
I don't know, the Sheffield United, the Shea Adams one, because that was a big game at the time. Because I was in work as well. I was in work as well, and I was on my break watching it go mental whenever I went 3-0.
He's not one for tap-ins, is he?
No, he's not. No.
So, okay, who was your player of the season?
Mine was Stuart Armstrong.
Stuart Armstrong, Darren, yeah.
100% every match. May not be the best sometimes, but 100% never stops running. That's an ex-Celtic player. Me telling an ex-Celtic player.
The only player who's got better stats than Stuart Armstrong for running, James Ward-Prowse.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Right. He's definitely our second choice. Well, he's my second choice, but the same question to you, Jimmy.
Well, I was either him or Kyle Walker-Peters, to be honest.
Yeah,
like Kyle Walker-Peters is just probably our most consistent. Even whenever we're like playing crap, like the way he even said earlier that against West Ham, he was our best attacking threat, and he's a right back. You know what I mean? Like
it speaks volumes when your fullback's your best attacking threat, doesn't it?
He was loads this season. I mean, I think the thing that gets me is it was probably, although I give it the JWP, it was probably a lot closer between those three players for me. I know someone on the call tonight actually picked out Danny Ings, and I got what he meant in the sense of the goals, but obviously with him being injured for long periods during the season. So who's your one for the future?
There only really is one. It's Tella, like, you know what I mean? He's only real youth player that's sort of, that you would be happy with playing every week. Like, you know what I mean? There's not really much else there. He takes people on, whereas Redmond goes and hides and stuff, you know.
Where would you play him? As a winger, left or right side? Or
him and Armstrong on either side, definitely.
Right, so then the last question really is, I want to get your thoughts on maybe what we can look forward to or what needs to happen going into next season.
£100 million.
Here, how much money's that Lord owner got?
Get rid of some of the dead wood, like first and just straight away get rid of them. Like,
Please get rid of all these boys off the wage bill. Flip.
I know, if nothing else, like, yeah, I don't know. If we keep Ings, we're in with a shout. Like, you know what I mean? You need to keep him because we're not. No matter what money we're going to get for him, we're not going to get someone as good. If you get me, you know what I mean? Because who's going to want to come to us? That's level, like.
No, 100%. Any other positions that you'd like to see filled? I mean, I've got to be honest. I think keeping Ings for me is a necessity. Obviously, we need a left back, but I also feel that the chasm between, our first two forwards, as I've just said.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, I think we need a centre half. The reason why I say I think we need a centre half is because the way that Ralph plays football, unfortunately, Vestergaard and Jack Stevens, if you play them as centre halves, they're not quick enough. So if they get caught sort of over the halfway line, they're not going to be getting back anytime soon. Plus, you need people with plenty of energy, which is why come the start of the season, Bednarek reads a game well. Yeah. He's not the quickest, but he reads the game well. His positioning sense is pretty good. And that offsets for Salisu for me because I think he's got all the attributes as far as I'm concerned for the be in the starting berths for next season. And in fact, to raise money, I'd be prepared to sell Vestergaard because apparently there's interest from
Juventus and all.
Like I've said before, I think start of the season for me, they were getting it. He was getting a tune out of some very ordinary players in the team, and he genuinely was. He was helping to improve them. But do I think that some of them have improved enough? No, not really. I still think we have players in the team that are not of Premier League standard.
And I'm starting to have them. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, definitely.
I just wanted to know, is there anything else that you'd like to see happen? I mean, obviously, Darren said that he wants to see basically a bit of money invested. And I suggested bringing the Lord over, but
I hate saying that. To see money, just see when I watch guys, sometimes I see the money and boys it infuriates me, but that's just the way it is now. I mean, Raheem Sterling is getting £390,000 a week. He wouldn't get on the chimney corner team.
Let's be honest, though. I mean, now that Lorne are in the money, I mean, they're going to be winning the league in a couple of seasons' time.
But Lorne haven't spent any transfer fees.
Anything else then that you want to see going forward for next season at all?
I wouldn't mind seeing us play three at the backs and then Vestergaard can sit deeper and then Salisu and Bednarek can sort of come forward, if you get me, you know what I mean? Because I think Vestergaard is actually good whenever he drops back and people aren't going to run past him.
So you play deeper?
Yeah, like a different
two wing backs.
Yeah, like a different system, you know what I mean? Because the 4-2-2-2 doesn't work every week, you know what I mean? Clearly.
I think for me, I definitely think for me next season, it's in-game subs for Ralph. I want to see that working better because I think this season that's been his Achilles heel. During games, Ralph's in-game substitutions have failed more than they've worked, to be fair. So I'd like to see Ralph improve that. And hopefully having a better squad will do that because I think, to be fair, he's been getting a tune out of a lot of average players for a long time, and to keep us above that line 3 times, nothing short of a miracle, to be fair. So big pat on the back for Ralph. But there are things he needs to work on himself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So worst game of the season?
So the 9-0.
I'm sure we said the 3-2 and the 9-0. Or the
Newcastle?
The Newcastle 3-2, yeah.
The 3-2 and the 9-0. See, that surprises me because I thought the 2 would have highlighted the semi-final loss in the FA Cup.
Well, yeah, true. I know. It was just disappointing because Leicester, it's not as if they battered us, you know what I mean? They got a lucky goal, they weren't at it at all. If we had actually went for it, we probably would have caused them a bit of trouble. But
that's what annoys me. I haven't played. We sometimes with say Brighton's playing Burnley for argument's sake. You didn't take one of them players for Southampton. at Brighton or Burnley. But their manager, how well Brighton plays. You know, I don't understand. Why Brighton looked great towards the end of the season, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I've got to say, Darren, for me, they've got they've got a better squad of players than we have.
A better squad, fair enough. But starting elevens.
Even if you look at their younger players that they have coming through, even though we'll finish above them this season, but genuinely, I think for me, Brighton, the one thing that they've got missing is a proper number 9. Because you can't really say Welbeck's a number 9.
No.
So a proper number 9's probably. But we're not here to talk about that. But no, but apart from that, thanks for coming on, and really appreciate it. Thanks.
Take care and stay safe, both of you.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
So, stay tuned next week for part 2.